Welcome back to the Georgia 2024 show. We are brought to you by the Georgia Record, georgiarecord.com. I'm not sure why that's not coming off. Bill, are you? Are you still there?
I am. I can't. I don't know.
I see what I did. 1 second. Just producing on the fly today. 1 second. There we go.
Well, that was okay.
Okay.
Nothing like a little graffiti to start the show.
It's been crazy, guys. We're launching a new show tomorrow morning. We are putting together all the graphics, news coming in like crazy, guests wanting to be on the show. So apologize for the mix up there. We are packed tonight. We're going to talk pesticides, corporate collusion, corporate immunity, election fraud. And I did an interview with Eric Prince, and we're going to go through that a little bit, and so you can get a preview, and we're going to tell you where to go. But a fantastic interview, and I'm really excited. It went really well, and Eric's going to be a regular on our show. So maybe we'll get him on the Georgia show down the road, Bill. But
wow, that would be exciting.
Yeah, what do you got for us tonight?
Well, you just kind of listed it all.
Okay,
we have the we're going to talk about the pesticide bill that passed, but now we begin to learn more about maybe why it passed and why it passed so quickly. We're going to talk a little bit about the election integrity executive order, and it's already having some effects, and I bet it's having effects that are scaring the bejesus out of some folks, very frankly, and we enjoy that. There's also some movement going on here, but perhaps surprising movement in Georgia on election integrity. Go figure.
Mm-hmm.
And and we'll sneak in a couple other things on some of the plays here in Georgia. So we'll have a fun show tonight.
Do you think this? We talked about this earlier on Output this morning. Do you think that all this pressure was unexpected on the other side, if you will? I mean, you have all this election integrity focus by Trump. You have Trump winning. You have all this pressure on the corporate immunity. I don't think they thought this was coming. I thought they would have been much more prepared, but they're not. I find that very interesting. What do you think?
Well, it kind of suggests that some of these moves may not be exactly what they appear to be at first glance. So, for example, if you're trying to show that a guy's been, pickpocketing, the crowd, one of the ways is to make sure that he's in front of the crowd and they get pictures of him pickpocketing. Otherwise, nobody would believe it. And so, by pushing some of these people up into the spotlight, I think it's giving us a chance to see who's playing by the rules, who's the good guys, and who's potentially the bad guys. And other than doing that, I'm not sure we would believe some of this because there's, as we've already seen, there's folks that we would have guessed were good, and yet now when they're put in a particular position, they can't act that way anymore. They have to come out and kind of show who they maybe really are. How that's going to play out, we're not going to guess. It's almost like people have used the term 5D chess a number of times over the last 4 years, and maybe that's what we're seeing play out. My only suggestion is, keep your head on a swivel, watch everything you can, and wait until the proof's in the pudding before making a final judgment. Try not to guess at the beginning.
So on that vein, there's this whole signal issue with National Security Advisor Waltz. And, there was a lot of, he was very pro-war, pro-Ukraine prior to this whole thing. And it comes out that he may have had Goldberg, I think was his name, the journalist at The Atlantic, in his chat because he maybe was leaking to him while he was on the House Intel Committee. And that goes to your point. Maybe this was, a way of putting somebody out there that maybe not be who they are, who they say they are. It's interesting. I mean, I don't know the man. I give him the benefit of the doubt, but obviously he had the journalist in his phone, right? So
apparently, I mean, the other thing is I've had conversations with people who are in a position to know, and they will quickly admit Signal is a pretty good application for consumers, for folks, out here in the real world that would like a little bit better security perhaps on their text messaging. It is not a military grade application. And these guys, the kind of guys that we're talking in this thing would not expect it to be. And so it kind of begs the question, why why would there be so much, oh gosh, they're using Signal for all this stuff? No, I bet they're not.
Mm,
I think it was, an unusual circumstance for reasons we don't fully know yet.
It kind of smells like the whole influencer op at the White House. Like there was some other possible agenda behind that to put people out front and to
Hmm.
say, all of those people ran to their podcasts and say, I have an exclusive on Epstein. And well, they didn't. And they didn't even,
Yeah.
so fascinating.
Uh,
Well, I'm gonna run a quick ad from Tucker because he's one of our great new sponsors on his Alp product, the
yep.
nicotine. So we'll be right back after this.
True life Alp story. I got a call from a friend of mine yesterday, honestly, true story, who said his girlfriend had just broken up with him over Alp. He wouldn't stop. And I thought to myself, that's kind of sad. And he said, no, it's not sad. Imagine if I'd married her. Now I know I was saved. Then the next day, this same friend is driving at twice the speed limit through a major American city, pulled over by a cop in a speed trap. Cop takes his license registration, goes back to the patrol car, runs him, comes back, looks in the window, and sees a tin of Alp on the dashboard. Pauses, stunned, says to my friend, you use Alp? Yeah, I do, says my friend. So do I, says the cop. We all do. He looks at my friend thoughtfully and goes, drive safely, sir, and hands back his license and registration. No ticket. So in 2 days, he's saved from a tragic marriage to a girl who doesn't like Alp and a speeding ticket. All true. It's more than a nicotine marriage. In a nation of 350 million people, we're guessing there are about 350 million Alp stories. Email us yours. We want to know and read it on the air. Email tellall@alppouch.com. Tellall@alppouch.com.
Make sure to put the CDM on that outpouch.com/CDM. And we're actually doing a lot of this business. So thank you out there.
It is
I see you
interesting
want to say
that,
something.
yeah, it is. It is interesting that he would have this commercial side to him. He's a pitchman,
He is. He is.
He's
You
pretty
never
fun.
knew. You never knew.
I wanted to make a comment before we move
Yeah.
on from the Epstein thing, if you don't mind. One of the things that's encouraged me now is they have Alina Habba,
Mhm.
one of the key attorneys for the president, and just an amazing person. She's done an amazing job protecting him in many of these cases. But now that they've got her looking into these things, she's come out, and unless people have missed it, she's talked about there are 14 terabytes of information that are going to be part of the Epstein investigation. I will tell you that, I've been in the technology business for 30 some odd years. I have yet to use up 14 terabytes. So that's a lot of stuff. We can't wait to see what that all is.
That is a lot of stuff. Well, I'm going to turn it over to you, Bill. Let's get going.
Okay. So we've been talking for the last number of weeks, I guess since the first part of March, regarding what we've termed the pesticide bill, or SB 144. It unfortunately passed both the Georgia House and Senate in the last few days. And we continue to wonder, why is this bill been so liked? It really protects only the big chemical companies that are making pesticides and other chemicals used by the agriculture industry. Why in the heck has this been so prevalent? And when you look at the votes that have been taken on it by our legislators here in Georgia, it's been both Republican and Democrats voting for this thing. Why? There's been many folks stand up and say, what the heck is going on? This doesn't benefit consumers. It certainly doesn't benefit farmers who may be exposed to these chemicals on an hourly, daily basis. Why has this been passed, and why so quickly? There's the House vote. Again, bipartisan support for this thing. How come? Well, we'll come back to this in just a minute. But the beginning part of this week, Reuters came out with a story that may explain the pressure behind here. Right here in Georgia, Bayer was hit with a $2 billion verdict for causing cancer in an individual plaintiff. And they've awarded $65 million in compensatory damages, and the remainder, $2 billion essentially, in punitive damages against Bayer, the maker of Roundup. Now, going back for just a minute, Bayer acquired the original manufacturer of Roundup, Monsanto, back in 2018. And Monsanto, you may recall, manufactured something used back in the 60s, Agent Orange. Now, many people assume they're the same thing. We are told they are not. They're different chemicals, but still both herbicides using different types of formulations. The problem here is this new bill just passed, not yet signed by the governor, would prevent cases like this from ever being brought. And here's an individual who's got cancer and has just been awarded $2 billion, most of it punitive. We don't know the circumstances, but we will be downloading the case files on this and finding out why they felt such a high level of punitive damages was required. So we look further into this thinking, well, what the heck is driving this here in Georgia? And we find, with the help of some beautiful researchers all across Georgia that are helping us, this person, Chitkala Kalidas. She is the Bayer Vice President of Regulatory Affairs, among a few other functions within the company. She was at the World Economic Foundation last year in 2024, the meeting that they hold each year in Davos with Team Bayer. Guess who else was at Davos last year? Our beautiful governor, Brian Kemp. And if you recall, he was approached by one of the news reporters and asked, who are you meeting with? What are your plans? What are your agendas? And he literally, along with his wife, essentially kind of ran down the street, avoiding the questions from this reporter, wouldn't answer who he was going to meet with. And so we wonder, did he meet with this, this woman from Bayer? Was there a discussion? We have no way of knowing. But it is interesting that in our next legislative session, up comes Bayer and ChemChina, and the possibility of shielding them from other lawsuits like this $2 billion suit that just got awarded, and it was here in Georgia. How fascinating. We want to take a look a little bit at Bayer and the dynamics that have been going on with the company. It turns out, let's see, we'll come back to that in just a minute. It turns out that Bayer has not just this one lawsuit, but 60,000 lawsuits pending against it for various things. But we believe Roundup is a key constituent in the middle of that. 60,000. So imagine if each one of those was awarded to the plaintiff at even a fraction of the cost of this particular lawsuit. And that has been Bayer and ChemChina's argument in part these last weeks, when people have been saying, well, why do we need to do this? The chemical company's answer has been, well, if we don't get some coverage, some protection, we're going to go out of business. Well, think this through for a moment. You're providing a chemical which now may have been shown to be causing cancer. It's becoming more well known that these chemicals cause various types of diseases, maybe including cancer and lymphoma and other things. Why would you want to continue making these anyway?
Yeah.
You need the chemical. Well, we don't need something that's causing harm to humans. We need a chemical that perhaps if we need a chemical, we need one that will do its job in preventing pests or preventing weeds or whatever, but we're not going to kill humans to do it. And we're not going to harm humans to do it. And yet their argument is, well, we'll go out of business if we don't get this protection. And I'm thinking, well, maybe.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we pass it. And so you have to wonder what has been going through the minds of, our legislators. They're the ones who so quickly went through this and passed it. And, is it just some sort of pressure coming from Kemp? We don't know. Is it pressure coming from some other level? Well, it may be, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. At the moment, the status of this bill, and it's SB 144. It is sitting in between the legislature and the governor's office, and it will go into force as law if the governor signs it. This number will allow you to reach the office of the governor. And if you're in Georgia and you, like I, believe that this is a bad bill, dangerous for farmers, dangerous for consumers, should not be in place. It protects only chemical companies in other countries like China and Germany. Call this number and politely, kindly make your view known unequivocally to the governor. And hopefully we can get some rational thought around this before it goes any further.
Yes.
That's the goal. Now, I want to go back to something too that kind of spells out why this is more than just Georgia's worry. Turns out that this same type of bill, it's worded slightly differently in different states, but as we sit here tonight, this same type of bill is in play in 7 states across the U.S. Montana, Iowa, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Idaho, and North Dakota. Thankfully, due to the work of a very nice lady, Zen Honeycutt, the founder of Moms Across America, we know about this. And she and her team have been doing a great job getting the word out on the concerns about this bill, what it could do, the damage that it can cause, and the horrific effects if someone were to get a disease, get cancer, get something else from these chemicals and have no recourse, because that's what this bill would do. And we assume all these bills would do the same thing. They'd prevent people from even seeking damages if they are damaged by these chemicals. That's not fair, and it shouldn't be done. So we encourage folks in each of these states, one, find out as much as you can about the bill that's in play. What status is it at? What can you do to stop it? How do you message to your legislators this must be stopped? 2, look for the lobbyists, and we're going to show you what we found here in Georgia in just a moment. Those are the people that are day by day, week by week, going to the individual legislators and working them to get them to vote to pass such bills. And we hope that through those efforts and through the efforts of Moms Across America, we find ways to stop this in many of these states, including Georgia, if we can.
It's just an ongoing story, Bill. It's getting bigger and bigger, and quite obvious as what's going on. I mean, I think these people have just decided to go for broke, and they know that pressure is coming, and they're just going to do what they need to do to survive in the way they've been operating in the past.
We had a good suspicion that this was here for a reason when it first cropped up. And sometimes you can't put your finger on it, but I think it was the urgency. It was introduced by the leader of the Senate. It was supported by a number of the people in the Senate. Seemed to get a lot of push very quickly. That often is a signal that, hey, something's up here. We saw it a year ago or a year and a half ago now with 520, the mental health bill with all kinds of crazy stuff in it. And we've seen it before. And so that, I think, is what triggered the concern here initially. But unfortunately, it seems to have been proven true. Shall we take a break quickly, or do you want to?
Yeah, one of our best sponsors is David Cross. He's a financial advisor, and it's really important that if you have a time in your life when you need advice, and you may not even know you need advice, you don't know what you don't know. But if you got a divorce, or a death in the family is a big one, a sale of a business is another one, to make sure your estate and transfer process is all set up properly. David's the guy to call. So call him at US Asset Management. Let's run an ad from David, please.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At US Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. US Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
So what's next on the calendar?
Okay, well, let's talk about the folks that are pushing this probably at the legislative level. Again, with wonderful help from folks that we know across the state. We were able to find out about the lobbyists that have been pushing Bear. And here they are. It's a firm known as Hayden and Raynor. Chandler Hayden is one of the principals. David Raynor is the other. And they just joined forces literally in the last 6 months, which to me spells part of the answer to this. Why did they just come together in the last few months? In looking at and just before we move on, just one more reminder about what this is. $2.1 billion verdict that just got announced this week. 65 million of that was in compensatory damages. Approximately 2 billion was in punitive damages, and there's 60,000 other cases pending.
Wow.
Again, how much would Bayer be willing to invest to get even a portion of this to go away? Probably quite a bit.
Yeah.
So in looking at Chandler Hayden, we found that she's been supporting Bayer since at least 2019, pretty much right after they acquired Monsanto. We have anecdotal information that she may have been supporting Monsanto even in advance of that, but we haven't been able to confirm that through the state ethics system as yet. But just understand, for 5 years, she's been supporting Bayer, and that will become interesting in just a few minutes as we show something else. And then the other person is David Raynor. David has held several positions. Sorry, I forgot to put his background on here, but he held positions as chief of staff for Senate Majority Leader back in the early 2000s. He was with the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, and just joined forces with Ms. Hayden literally in September, October of last year, and then all of a sudden became registered as a Bayer lobbyist January of this year, about 3 months ago. Now think about the timing of this bill and think about what they just got through putting together in this firm. Were they aware that they needed to push this, and is that the reason they put it together? We don't know, but maybe.
Yeah.
So it's pretty clear that they've been pushing this. One of the things that we're sad about, very frankly, and I'll go back here for just a moment. So we know that Chandler Hayden has been supporting Bayer for now 5 years, right? Should know pretty much the risks here. These are not unknown by people that support Bayer. At least I have to assume. These are widely known issues with both Bayer and ChemChina. At the same time, we were saddened to find this picture of this lady taking apparently a victory lap along with Governor Kemp at a cancer treatment center in Noonan. Now, keep in mind that this latest case is $2 billion awarded to a cancer patient that appears to have been caused by a product of Bayer. And so she's supporting Bayer, but she's also showing up at cancer treatment ceremonies. And then here's another one that we found, apparently having a good time at something to do with the Lexington Cancer Foundation. It hurts my heart to see this kind of thinking. You would think that folks, if they knew what they were dealing with, they would make better choices about who to support. But at the end of the day, perhaps the choices are more about things that folks can spend. I don't know. But we will continue to press on this as we go forward. We believe that this can still be stopped. We believe it's a bad bill, very bad bill for Georgia, specifically for our farmers and potentially for consumers, and should and must really be stopped. Okay. Shall we press on?
Yeah, well, let's do a quick ad again with the wellness company. I'll run it here. So twc.health/CDM is one of our best sponsors. And if you haven't checked out their site, you can use CWM as a promo code and get 10% off any of the products. They've really reimagined healthcare, from the supplements to the medical kits to weight loss, all of it. But go to twc.health/CDM, check it out. And
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and
Mhm.
ivermectin,
Mhm.
these are two medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They
Mhm.
are very, very inexpensive, interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada.
Yeah.
You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both
Mhm.
ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
So again, support TWC, the wellness company. Back to you, Bill.
Okay. So one of the stories that we brought out this week was regarding Josh McCoon and an event that he had held back at the end of 2023. We had been contacted by several folks that reported concerns regarding a dinner that he had sponsored, a fundraising dinner, ostensibly for himself, and featuring attendance of the by the lieutenant governor. And these folks reported concerns around this. Let's show you the invite. And essentially, if you read down through this, it was held in November. Josh McCoon was elected to the uh, Georgia Republican Party, now called Georgia Republican Party, Inc. Chairmanship back in June of 2023, and then this was held in November, and again featured Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones. Now down at the bottom, it's a little tough to read because it's small on the screen, but you could choose if you wanted to attend this to pay $5,000 to be seated at the table with Lieutenant Governor Jones. You could spend $3,000 for other tables with other parties, and you could spend $1,000 simply to attend the reception. Certain concerns around this rang with folks that know a lot more than I do about the regulations governing such things, and they chose to refer it to the Federal Bureau of Investigation down in the here in Georgia. So we simply want to put this on the table. We think it is concerning, but we don't know what's going on. Nobody will know what's going on because anything that they might be no follow up, there could be follow up. We have no idea. As most people know, once the FBI or somebody else is given some information, you never hear about it again until when and if they ever take action. And so we don't know. We don't know. But we thought the report was interesting and the folks came forward to us. It was interesting in that it got a response from another gentleman here in Georgia, relatively well known, Jeff Fulgham. And he wrote just a little while ago. So in Atlanta, they're selling a seat at the dinner table with a politician for $5,000 per person. Okay, South Georgia, I've got my prices. 30 minutes of access if you buy me a Coke and a hot dog at the convenience store. Just kidding. I'll listen to you for free. Make politicians accessible to their constituents again. Make public servants servants again. South Georgia MAGA, and signed by Jeff Fulgham. And so we found that kind of chuckleish and thought we'd share that. So again, we try to make sure that we're being very, very, very factual with all of these, but thought that this one was notable enough that we needed to bring it out. Also, we saw President Trump enact and sign an executive order yesterday regarding election integrity. Almost, it was kind of funny. People expected this to be almost the first thing he worked on, and yet it's taken a little bit of time, and here it comes now. Let's hear the comments as they get ready to sign this.
For your attention on the very important subject of election integrity. We believe that this executive order is the farthest reaching executive action taken in the history of the Republic to secure our elections. Among numerous other aspects of this executive order, this is going to cut down on illegal immigrants on the voter rolls, ensure that the Department of Homeland Security and the data that they have available is being fully weaponized to ensure that illegal immigrants aren't voting. This will include a citizenship question on the federal voting form for the first time. This executive order instructs the EAC to cut federal funding to states that don't take reasonable steps to secure their election. This calls on the Department of Justice to vigorously prosecute election crimes, particularly in states that we don't believe are in compliance with federal law around election integrity. I could go on and on for a while, sir, but the compliance with national election day rules, cracking down and investigating and prosecuting foreign interference in our elections, revoking President Biden's Executive Order 14019, which essentially weaponized government to corrupt and pollute our election process. There's a lot in here, but we believe that these are very important steps that we need to be taking as an administration at your direction to ensure that our elections are as secure as they possibly can be.
Okay, you all understand that? Yes. Election fraud. You've heard the term.
He's so subtle at those times.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
very fascinating. It got a reaction from Brad Raffensperger, and here it is. Thank you, President Trump, for this executive order to ensure only American citizens decide American elections. That's one piece of this. It's not all of it. This is a great first step for election integrity reforms. You could have heard laughter all the way across Georgia saying, who in the heck is Brad Raffensperger to say thank you for election integrity reforms? He's been fighting these ostensibly now for 4 years since the 2020 election.
To the point of filing amicus briefs against some of the cases.
That's correct. And obfuscating and keeping data from the state election board that they have requested. You'll recall that his general counsel, Charlene McGowan, denied access to the Fulton election ballot images, saying, well, if you will confirm, that the case is over and resolved, then we can see our way clear to let you see these. That's astounding. It's denying access to evidentiary information required by the state election board. At the same time, Raffensperger's been running around the country claiming we have the cleanest voter rolls in the nation. Let's take a look at this for just a minute.
Really great job of cleaning up those rolls to almost a majority degree. I mean, I think that there are only a few outlier counties where this is still an issue. Can you walk our audience through this initiative and how you got that done, and maybe provide a prototype for other states?
Well, we have the cleanest voter rolls in the country because we do several measures. Number one is we're doing regular list maintenance. We'll continue to do regular list maintenance through the 2024 cycle. We've also have partnered with our Department of Driver Services. And so when people go to any of the other 49 states and get a driver's license, we get notification of that through Department of Driver Services. You can't have two driver's licenses, so then we can send a notice to that person. Oh, we understand you got a driver's license here in Texas, North Dakota, Nebraska. It doesn't matter where it is. And then we just verify that they have moved there. We can take them off the voter roll.
The reality is they've taken almost no one off the voter rolls for some number of years. And as one of the state election board members have been saying as they travel around the state, many counties now have more people on registration, more people on their voter roll than live in the county of voting age. So clearly these are not clean voter rolls. And we actually have examples of that have been developed by very, very great researchers like Jason Frazier and others. And so here's an example where he points out, just from and this one example is Cobb County. Look at the duplicates. Same person, registered multiple times, sometimes in the same county, sometimes in multiple counties, but with the same information. How could that be? How could it be? And yet they exist. And so miraculously, in the last few days, Raffensperger, even though he's been claiming they've been doing regular maintenance to the voter rolls, announces they're going to purge up to 500,000 registrations from our voter rolls in the coming time frame, whatever that may be. Where would those come from? If he's been doing regular maintenance all along, he would have none to purge. But all of a sudden, he's going to purge 500,000. This should be very interesting to explain, and especially since he has a case pending against him for exactly that, for failing to comply with the National Voter Registration Act and failing to clean our voter rolls. So we will see how this one plays out. But I think it's got legs, as we say.
Well, this
here in
whole
Georgia.
thing, he put it in the cloud, obviously, so that could be controlled. Just a lot of nefarious behavior going on that needs to be examined, and probably from the federal level at some point.
Yep. So the other thing that's going on, we caught wind of something happening down at the Capitol this afternoon. We got several calls, several emails, and it turns out, and we'll show a picture from the hearing. The ethics committee was having was having a hearing on a particular couple of bills, but magically the bills were different than they were expected to be. All of a sudden, they included some measures which ostensibly might remove Georgia's voter rolls from ERIC. ERIC is the company formed by David Becker, you may recall. You and I went up to an event where David Becker was holding a conference talking about, best practices about elections, and they didn't seem to really like having us there. I think we were
No.
disclosing.
That was at the Spy Museum, tongue in cheek there.
Yeah. Funny place to hold it.
Yeah.
So this hearing had some content. People knew that there was something coming up. They didn't know exactly what, I don't think. But we should hear by tomorrow morning what the outcome of this was. Now, my understanding is they were not going to take a vote on this particular bill. I believe it's numbered 397, but would do several things that looked good, but may not be quite as good as perhaps advertised. If I was listening closely enough just before the show, what I think I heard was that this would take into next year to actually separate us from ERIC. Many states, upon trying to visit ERIC's headquarters and finding no one there and no systems there, and not being able to find out where their data was even being housed, very quickly separated from ERIC, Alabama being one of them. And so it kind of begs the question, why are we so anxious and quick to move on something like the pesticide bill, which had to get done right now, and in fact did get done. And yet this is sitting and languishing and comes up
wait a year.
and it may take another year to get something to happen. I hope that I'm wrong in that. I hope that they see the error of their ways and figure a way to get this to happen. But it just goes to show when the powers that are in play want something to happen, it happens. And when they want to stall it and slow boat it, that's what happens. And so
Exactly.
I will be cautiously hopeful that this proceeds, but would encourage legislators and the folks in Georgia to push this to happen in a proper time frame, which would be now.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. What else do you got to talk about today, Bill, this evening?
That and anything else that you want to discuss with regard to Georgia, I'm happy to. I know that you wanted to show a little bit of your conversation with Eric Prince. I think that's a fascinating dialogue. So
yeah, we built a relationship with Eric due to our military focus on our armedforces.press channel. If you go to armedforces.press, you can see the full interview. We're gonna play some of it now. I think you'll find it really interesting, and we'll just get.
You might want to tee up who Eric Prince is, because he's a fascinating gentleman.
Yeah, so Eric is the former CEO of Blackwater, which was a private mercenary firm, essentially uh, contracting military jobs out in Iraq, etc. And it ran into some problems politically, political attacks, and the firm was eventually sold. But he stayed heavily involved with a lot of the geopolitical events around the world, extremely knowledgeable on military affairs, geopolitics, and what's going on in the Trump administration. I think he's a friend of the Trump team. And so we're going to play some of this. I think you'll really, really enjoy it. So here we go. This is Dot Press. We're honored today to have with us former CEO of Blackwater and serial entrepreneur Eric Prince. Thanks, Eric, for taking the time. I know you're slammed, but appreciate you coming on.
Nice to see you.
So you went to the Naval Academy. I'm an Air Force grad, but I wanted to start with that. I mean, you left early. And there's been all these problems at the academies. Do you think, one, do they have a purpose? And if they do, how do we resolve the problems at the service academies, which are endemic to what they're teaching our young officers?
Look, I think the service academies have gone adrift from what they were supposed to do. They're supposed to teach people to do naval combat, not diversity, not environmentalism, to teach people to destroy other countries' navies. And when you divert from that mindset, you really divert from the purpose of why the taxpayers are spending all that money to train naval officers. I guess my second perspective on that was having gone to the Naval Academy for a year and a half, and I left because I found the political correctness, the double standards, and the nonsense to be untenable. And so I left. I went to a civilian school. I would say I learned more about leadership serving on the fire department in the local community than I did in a very artificial attempt at a learning lab that was a Naval Academy. The idea that the next class ahead of you is supposed to teach you, they don't know shit. Okay, for a junior in college to teach leadership to a sophomore or a freshman, come on. So, but then it was really clear to me when I went to Buds, because I went through OCS, and so there was a mix of OCS, a couple of ROTC, and a few academy officers in the class, and how their style of leadership, their interaction, their ability to motivate, lead other SEAL candidates was exceedingly limited. And so I've had a pretty dim view of the academy from the beginning, and that really reinforced it.
So that begs the question: how do we train our officer corps? What's the best method we could do in the future? If you were God, what would you put in place?
I still think there's a place for direct commissioning programs, but I really I think there's a much bigger place. There should be a bigger place for Mustangs.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, for sure.
And NCOs. I mean, look, in my business career, I had really good experience with warrant officers because both the warrant officers that were running the training program at SEAL Team when I was there, or the guys that came and really helped me start Blackwater, and the guy that was the president that really grew the Blackwater. I might have been the idea guy behind Blackwater. Gary Jackson, a retired SEAL warrant officer, made the place run. And Jim Surowski, the director of training, Ken Vieira, the original general manager, all SEAL warrant officers, the embodiment of true subject matter expertise, commissioned with true leadership credibility that had been earned. So I have a bias. I have a bias towards Mustangs because of that.
I was reading about your career, and followed your career, and that's why I wanted to have you on. But you were very proud of the record you had at Blackwater. Very low percentage of some armed conflict. Some guys were killed, but I could tell you were proud of the product you created and the focus on taking care of your guys. Is that where it came from the NCOs you had in leadership?
Yeah, I was certainly part of that culture as well. I think I learned that from my dad, from running a manufacturing business. And, my dad started off with scratch with nothing. And so by day, he would be the president, CEO of the business, trying to make it happen when they started with 6 employees.
Sure.
And at night, he would go work a second shift and run a boring mill all night, making big steel parts. And 12 hours or half-hour days, or half days. So try to lead from the front and take care of the people. I'd say that's one of my proudest things professionally, is that I still run into a lot of former employees or contractors around the world, and
Yeah.
they say, "What are you doing next? Because we want to join you." And in that period that I worked for Blackwater was some of the happiest times of my life. So that's satisfying.
Well, we'll get to what you're doing now later, but because I want to dig into that. But take a step back. I spent my summers up in Mackinac, Michigan. You're from that area, not from Mackinac, but
Yep.
the area. And you went to Hillsdale. How was that experience at Hillsdale? I've always been curious what that school's like.
Hillsdale was good. It was obviously a contrast from a school run by the federal government, the Naval Academy, to Hillsdale, which is one of 2 in the country that accepts no federal funding. So if I wanted to do ROTC while I was at Hillsdale, they say, yeah, that's fine. You can go do ROTC at the U of M, but there's no federal money spent here. Where they've never accepted it, and I don't think ever will.
Wow.
Because with it comes federal strings. So it was Hillsdale's a great campus, great culture. It's a smallish school. I think there's only 13 or 1400 kids, but I made the most of it. I learned a lot from the fire department. I learned a lot. I dove
Yep.
for the county sheriff's department doing body recoveries. I never really did the Greek system, but I made it my goal to go back into OCS and go to BUDS after I left the academy, and work towards that. I missed most of the fun times of college, and I still regret that.
A lot of us have regrets. So, I flew for JSOC MH-53s, and I think our paths may have crossed in the Balkans because we were flying out of Brindisi during the Yugoslav stuff
Oh yeah.
into Italy. But my thought is we were training for the last 20 years in the last war. We were focused on, low intensity conflict, special operations, and we built the show. I mean, we built an incredible capability for the United States to prosecute those wars. But have we taken our eye off, large scale combat? What do you think?
Yes, and I fear that people default to what they know, and the whole SOCOM world knows the counterinsurgency fight and not major state-on-state conflict. And so the idea of being able to fly in a helicopter to an objective, patrol in, and shoot somebody in the face, and then get on the helicopter and leave, hard to do in a super mature air defense environment.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of the whole term SEAL comes from sea, air, and land, and it's the whole idea about how do you get to your objective to where you're going to do your job. And so I'd say the hard part of special operations goes from being actions on the objective to actually just getting there, to the fight. And people need to remember that.
I think we need to be creative going forward, and I want to get to that too. But I have some family members in the U.S. Army who are on armored vehicles, and what is your opinion? I played on our previous show this morning the drone attacks in Kursk and all this stuff. It's just really intense, and I know you're up on this, but it's completely changed the entire face of warfare. Are these armored vehicles just sitting ducks? I mean, they're targets, right? Or do they have a place in the future? Because you need that shock value of cavalry, right? The shock and awe on the ground, like the old horse cavalry. But how do you take ground? How do you hold it in this environment?
It went from infantry alone combat 2,500 years ago to using chariots. And chariots were the attack helicopter or the armored vehicle of the battlefield then. And then elephants were involved. And then eventually the tank came out in World War I. And so there's always been a pendulum swinging back and forth between advantage to the infantry, right? The Panzerfaust or an RPG swings it back towards an infantryman, or you have great armor. Right now, the FPV drone and all the democratization and the cheapening of precision strike means that advantage is really back towards infantry and very small units, away from a big battle wagon. I would say give it a few years, and whether it's better armor, cages that protect against smaller FPV drones, lasers, EMP shock, lots of ways for battle wagons to improve their protection. And so it's always we're at one end of the seesaw right now.
So to switch gears, I know you're, you have a lot of contacts in Israel, as do I. But what is going on with this? And I know that the Witkoff was saying the Israeli special forces, and not Israeli, but Turkish special forces and drones were the ones that put HTS into Syria. In fact, I think you mentioned that. What's going on there? Are we going to have a conflict? Netanyahu said recently, Turkey. It's I think his words were it's almost inevitable or something like that, almost certain that we'll have a conflict with Turkey and Israel. Any thoughts on that?
Well, sure. I stand by that. Turkish Special Operations and Intelligence definitely stimulated HTS, which is just a rebranded ISIS Al Qaeda like affiliate.
Right.
And the leader, who was on the wanted list, got a good PR guy and trimmed
got
up
a haircut.
trimmed up his beard, got a new
put a suit on.
Exactly. Says the right things. And so that's look, that Syria is basically subjugated to Turkey now. Don't think any different really. And so the Erdogan's goal is to rebuild the Ottoman Empire, a caliphate, and he's on his way to doing it. If you'd watched any of his interviews over the last 10 years, he'll talk about including not just Syria, but northern Iraq, and even parts of Bulgaria.
Well, the Bulgars. Yeah, he's talking now about taking Syrian land. I mean, that is Israel behind the or who is behind the demonstrations against Erdogan in Turkey right now?
There is an actual opposition to Erdogan, and there's always been the rural areas are the most kind of hardline religious conservative zealotry, and the cities are kind of the most pro freedom. And so this mayor of Istanbul, I believe, that was arrested is the most popular likely opposition candidate to Erdogan, and he's locking him down. So imagine that's a so-called NATO ally locking up his opposition.
Well, we'll leave it there, Bill, but I just wanted people, the rest of the interviews on armedforces.press, fascinating in for you. We go for another 30 minutes, talk about a lot of really cool subjects, and I enjoyed that. So look forward to having him back.
That's a real warrior, and a guy that can tell you what's really happening. Let's see. Any other particular topics you want to cover? I wanted to talk a little bit about schedule for the next couple of weeks when we get a moment.
Well, we're launching. We're rebranding the Output Show to the SCIF, which is this specialized compartmented information facility. Anyone in national politics knows that. But the SCIF is 10 to 12 Monday through Friday Eastern, 10 to 12 a.m. And it's launching tomorrow, so please join us in the morning. We're going to make this a really solid intel brief, so you're smart for the rest of the day and can impress your friends. So that's all I want to say about that.
That sounds exciting. Good luck with that. Okay, so as we sit here today, we're on the 26th. A week from Friday is the end of Georgia's legislative session, and we will likely have some very interesting dynamics between now and then. It is very common for these last few days to get tumultuous with horse trading going back and forth or seeming horse trading. We don't know how much of it is for, kabuki theater and how much of it is real, but there will likely be a lot of movement. We will see what happens with the election steps, the bill that we just got through talking about, and some of these other things. Again, really recommend and ask Georgians to use that phone number for the governor. And let's do what we can to see if we can't prevent this SB 144 from actually becoming law in Georgia. People might get harmed by these chemicals. They might have no recourse if that law is in place, and that would be a shame. So we will have other things to cover in the coming days, and we will look forward to bringing them to you.
Well, that's all I got. We'll see you Sunday at 2 p.m. for another episode of the Georgia Show. Check us on the Skiff tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. That's
Look
all I
forward
got.
to it.
All right.